We have new information about the deadly shooting of a pregnant woman in Tallahassee yesterday. Arrest papers say she was the suspect's girlfriend. Jakari Martin Chagrin told investigators that he and Maya Johnson were arguing at their home on River Breeze Lane. He said he grabbed some of his belongings and was trying to leave when the gun went off. He claims the gun was not in his hand, but pinned against his body. The gunshot killed Johnson and her unborn child.
Her own boyfriend shot and killed her while carrying his unborn baby. A minor argument suddenly became heated. Then gunfire. In an instant, 2 lives were silenced forever. October 22, 2024. A quiet neighborhood in Tallahassee, Florida became the scene of a tragedy that began with something so ordinary, so everyday, that it seems impossible it could end in death. A simple double tap on an Instagram photo. A digital gesture that takes less than a second ignited a chain of events that left a pregnant mother dead and her boyfriend facing serious criminal charges. Maya Johnson, 26 years old and 9 weeks pregnant with her 3rd child, never imagined that night was her last. Her relationship with 22-year-old Jakari Martin Chagrin had its ups and downs like many couples, but what happened that evening crossed a line that can never be uncrossed. It all started with a notification, a heart icon, a stranger's photo, and Jakari's finger pressing like. That single action sparked an argument that escalated beyond anyone's expectations. Words were exchanged, emotions flared, and then a gunshot that ended not just 1 life, but 2. "I didn't mean to, it was an accident," Jakari told police. But was it? The evidence tells a different story. As detectives examined the scene, 5 major contradictions arose in Jakari's account of what happened that night. The position of the gun, the trajectory of the bullet, the mechanics of the firearm itself. All pointed to a truth far more disturbing than an accidental discharge. Do you know what's even more heartbreaking? Maya's 2 young children were home when their mother was shot, a mother of 2 with another baby growing inside her. She never knew that a simple Instagram notification on her boyfriend's phone had already sealed her fate. Her children now ask every day when mommy is coming home. They don't yet understand that she never will. I'm going to walk you through exactly what happened that night, reveal the shocking evidence that contradicted Jakari's story, and explain why prosecutors made the decisions they did about the charges he now faces. This is Crazy Dark Files. We have more crazy cases to bring to light. Subscribe to our channel and turn on the notification bell so you never miss an exposed case. Your support lends more voice to the deceased. Born on August 29, 1998, Maya Johnson lived just 26 years on this earth. But in that time, she built a life filled with purpose and love. As a mother of 2 young boys, she poured her heart into creating a stable, nurturing home. Friends described her as devoted to her children, always putting their needs first, despite the challenges of young motherhood. But Maya was more than just a mother. She had entrepreneurial ambitions and creative talents that she channeled into content creation. Her TikTok videos showcased her natural charisma and humor, giving viewers glimpses into her daily life and adventures. She enjoyed making people laugh, sharing travel experiences, and connecting with an audience that grew to appreciate her authentic presence online. When she discovered she was pregnant with her 3rd child, Maya embraced the news with characteristic optimism. At 9 weeks along, she had already begun planning for the new addition to her family. The pregnancy represented hope, a fresh chapter in her story. Her relationship with Jakari Martin Chagrin seemed on the surface to be heading in a positive direction. The 22-year-old expressed love for Maya and her children. They shared a home on River Breeze Lane in Tallahassee, made plans for the future, and posted happy moments on social media. To casual observers, they appeared to be a young couple navigating life's challenges together, excited about their growing family. But just like many others, they also had troubling moments that often lead to arguments. Neighbors told investigators about frequent arguments echoing from the couple's home. These weren't just minor disagreements, but full-blown domestic disputes. What the public didn't see in their social media posts were the moments of tension, jealousy, and conflict that characterized their private interactions. During police questioning after Maya's death, Jacare admitted something revealing. He had grabbed Maya by the neck during previous arguments. This casual admission of past physical aggression pointed to a relationship dynamic far more volatile than their online presence suggested. This disconnect between public perception and private reality is something psychologists identify as increasingly common in the age of social media. As you probably already know, when someone in a relationship interacts with attractive strangers online, it can trigger deep-seated insecurities in their partner. The public nature of these interactions, visible likes and comments, makes them particularly potent triggers for jealousy. Studies show that 30% of divorce cases now cite social media conflicts as contributing factors. The digital realm has created new boundaries to navigate, new forms of perceived infidelity, and new triggers for relationship conflict. For couples already experiencing tension, something as simple as liking another person's photo can become the match that ignites an explosive situation. The brain processes these digital interactions as real social threats, triggering the same neurochemical responses as physical confrontations. For Maya and Jacare, Instagram became the flashpoint on that fatal October night. A single notification, a photo of another woman, a digital thumbprint that Jacare left without perhaps considering the consequences. When Maya saw that her boyfriend had liked another woman's photograph, something inside her broke. Perhaps it wasn't just about that one interaction, but about a pattern of behavior, a culmination of small betrayals and growing mistrust. The argument that followed took a path that neither could have anticipated when they first met. As tensions escalated, Jacare took Maya's phone and hid it in their bedroom, and this only intensified the conflict. At a point, he began packing his clothes to leave for the night. The situation deteriorated further. What Maya couldn't have known as she confronted her boyfriend was that he had armed himself. The gun tucked under his arm as he moved through their home represented a level of danger she never saw coming. In her final moments, Maya Johnson was fighting for something so ordinary, respect in her relationship. She was standing up for herself, demanding accountability from her partner, protecting her sense of dignity. She had no way of knowing that by morning her 2 young sons would be motherless, and the baby growing inside her would never take a first breath. Before it all began, Maya Johnson went about her routine, caring for her 2 young children, perhaps creating content for her social media platforms, and managing the everyday responsibilities of motherhood. 9 weeks into her pregnancy, she likely experienced the familiar early symptoms, perhaps morning sickness, fatigue, or food cravings. Nothing about the day suggested it would end in tragedy. As evening approached, Maya and Jacare were both at home with her 2 children. At some point during the evening, Maya noticed something on Jacare's phone that caught her attention. Court records later revealed the catalyst. Maya became upset because Jacare liked another female's Instagram photograph. We don't know if it was someone Jacare knew personally or a stranger, whether it was provocative in nature or simply a casual image. What we do know is that this digital interaction, a simple tap on a screen, was enough to ignite Maya's concerns and suspicions. For many people, such a reaction might seem disproportionate, but context matters. In relationships with underlying trust issues or previous conflicts, small actions can carry enormous weight. A liked photo can represent more than just appreciation of an image. It can symbolize divided attention, wandering interest, or potential betrayal. The argument escalated quickly. Voices raised, accusations flew. At some point during this heated exchange, Jacare took a significant step that further inflamed the situation by taking Maya's phone and hiding it in their bedroom. This added fuel to an already volatile situation. Deciding he didn't want to argue anymore, Jacare told investigators he intended to leave for the night. He went into the bedroom to pack his clothes. But he didn't just gather his belongings, he also armed himself, tucking a gun under his armpit before returning to the kitchen area to collect his phone, wallet, and charger. Why he felt the need to arm himself for a domestic argument remains one of the most troubling questions in this case. When Maya saw him preparing to leave, the conflict intensified. According to Jacari's statement, she believed he had her phone hidden in his shorts pocket. She began grabbing at him, trying to retrieve what she thought was her property. The argument had now escalated from verbal to physical. Jacari claimed Maya chased him around the kitchen, throwing objects at him in frustration. The once peaceful home had transformed into a battleground, with both parties caught in a destructive cycle of anger and accusation. While this chaos unfolded in the kitchen, 2 young children were somewhere else in the home. Perhaps they were in their bedrooms, trying to sleep through the shouting. Maybe they were huddled together, confused and frightened by the adults' behavior. Children who witness domestic conflicts experience them differently than adults. Their developing brains process the stress in ways that can create lasting trauma. They might not understand the content of the argument, but they absorb the emotional intensity, the fear, the anger. For Maya's children, this wasn't just background noise. It was their reality. Their sense of safety crumbling as the 2 adults they depended on engaged in escalating conflict. They couldn't have known that in moments, they would hear a sound that would forever divide their lives into before and after. Did they sense the danger? Did they feel the tension building to its breaking point? Did they have any way to prepare for what came next? In the kitchen, the confrontation reached its fatal climax. According to Jacari, Maya was standing near him when the gun discharged. He insisted to investigators that the shooting was accidental, that somehow during their physical struggle, the weapon fired without anyone pulling the trigger. Within minutes of the shooting, Jacari called 911. He then drove Maya to Tallahassee Memorial Healthcare, arriving within 10 minutes of the incident. Despite medical intervention, both Maya and her unborn child died from their injuries. Jacari maintained his story. The gun went off accidentally during their struggle. He was adamant about this point, emphasizing repeatedly that he never intended to harm Maya. But as investigators began examining the evidence, serious problems with his account emerged. What Jacari told police about the shooting contradicted physical evidence in 5 critical ways. First, using a toy gun in the interview room, he demonstrated how the weapon was positioned under his arm, which would have prevented the trigger from being pulled. Yet the gun had fired. Second, detectives reconstructed the bullet trajectory and determined that based on Maya's height, she couldn't have been standing where Jacari claimed she was when the shot was fired. Third, a new bullet was found in the gun's chamber, indicating there was no obstruction to the bolt-action mechanism of the firearm, as there should have been if it was wedged between his arm and torso. Fourth, if the firearm had been wedged in his armpit as claimed, the spent casing would have been prevented from ejecting, causing an abrasion on Jacari's arm, which he did not have. And fifth, perhaps most damning of all, Maya's 2 children were interviewed about the shooting. While court records don't clarify if they only heard or physically saw the incident, both children advised that Jacari shot their mother. The story Jacari was telling simply didn't match the evidence. But if it wasn't an accident, what really happened in that kitchen? However, Jacari Martin Sugren maintained the shooting was accidental. He told them after the Instagram photo argument, he decided to leave for the night. He packed his clothes, tucked his gun under his armpit, and went to the kitchen for his personal items. Now let me take you inside that interrogation room for a moment. The detective sits across from Jacari, who's just demonstrated how he was holding the gun. So you're saying the gun just went off without anyone pulling the trigger? The detective asks. Jacari nods. Yes, sir, it was an accident. We were arguing, she was grabbing at me, and it just went off. The detective leans forward. In all my years investigating firearms incidents, I've never seen a gun fire without someone pulling the trigger. I don't know what to tell you, Jacari responds. It just happened. If the gun was positioned like that, the detective points to the toy gun. How did the trigger get pulled? Jacari has no answer. And you're certain Maya was standing right in front of you? He answered. Yes. The detective's expression changes. That's interesting, because the bullet trajectory tells us something different. Within days, investigators had gathered enough evidence to charge Jacari with 2 counts of manslaughter, Maya and 1 for her unborn child, plus 2 counts of possession of a firearm during the commission of a felony. But there was something in Ja'Kari's past that investigators found deeply troubling. During questioning, when asked if he had ever grabbed Maya by the neck, he casually admitted he had done so in the past. This admission of previous physical aggression revealed a pattern that cast an even darker shadow over the events of that fatal night. The shooting that took Maya Johnson's life wasn't an isolated incident, but the culmination of a troubling pattern. During police questioning, Ja'Kari made a casual yet chilling admission. When asked if he had grabbed Maya by the neck during their argument, he said he wasn't sure, but admitted he had done so in the past. This statement revealed a history of physical aggression that had gone unreported to authorities. Neighbors who spoke to detectives painted a clearer picture of life inside the River Breeze Lane home. They described frequent domestic disputes between Maya and Ja'Kari. These weren't just occasional disagreements, but recurring conflicts that had become a familiar sound in the neighborhood. One neighbor told investigators they had considered calling the police during previous arguments, but ultimately decided not to get involved, a decision they now deeply regretted. According to court records, the night Maya died was just one of many domestic disputes the couple has had inside the home. This pattern of escalating conflict is tragically common in cases that end in fatal violence. What makes this case even more disturbing is that it represents part of a larger trend in the area. Maya was the fifth victim of a domestic shooting in Leon County that year, and the third fatal shooting to occur specifically off Tower Road in northwest Leon County. This concentration of domestic violence in one geographic area points to a community-wide issue that extends beyond individual relationships. Research shows that strangulation is one of the most dangerous red flags in abusive relationships. A partner who has strangled or grabbed someone by the neck is 75% more likely to later kill that person. Ja'Kari's casual admission about grabbing Maya's neck in the past wasn't just concerning, it was a documented predictor of lethal violence. The presence of firearms dramatically increases the danger. When a gun is in the home, the risk of homicide in domestic violence situations increases by 500%. The most dangerous time in an abusive relationship? When the victim attempts to leave. Ja'Kari packing his bags might seem like de-escalation, but experts recognize that separation often triggers the most violent response from abusers who feel they're losing control. The tragedy of Maya's death is amplified by how preventable it might have been with earlier intervention. Like many victims, she likely didn't recognize the full danger of her situation. The relationship had normalized behaviors that outsiders would immediately identify as red flags. Now, 2 children are left without their mother, a third child never had the chance to be born, and a community is left wondering how many other homes in their neighborhood hide similar patterns of abuse behind closed doors. What warning signs do you think people miss in potentially dangerous relationships? Share your thoughts below. Your comment might help someone recognize a situation before it's too late. After gathering evidence and interviewing witnesses, the court ordered him held without bond at the Leon County Detention Facility. Many viewers might wonder, why manslaughter and not murder? The distinction is crucial in understanding this case. The state attorney for the Second Judicial Circuit explained the charging decision to the Tallahassee Democrat. "I don't have any evidence to say that he purposefully killed her with the intent to kill her, or that he even shot her on purpose." In Florida law, first-degree murder requires proof of premeditation, evidence that the killer planned the act beforehand. Second-degree murder requires proving the act depicts a depraved mind without regard for human life. Manslaughter, by contrast, is defined as killing someone without premeditation or intent to kill. It's classified as a second-degree felony. He was arguing with her and had a gun on him, but we don't have any evidence. And he certainly doesn't say that he was trying to kill her, the prosecutor explained. He says it went off while they were tussling and arguing, and of course she's dead. And I don't have any physical evidence to refute that. That's why it's manslaughter. Despite the forensic evidence contradicting Ja'Kari's account of how the gun discharged, prosecutors face limitations in proving intent. Without witnesses other than Ja'Kari himself and the children, establishing what was in his mind at the moment of the shooting presents significant challenges. Jacare faces up to 15 years for each manslaughter charge and additional time for the firearms charges. The death of the unborn child is treated as a separate victim under Florida law, which recognizes fetuses as potential victims of violent crime, regardless of their stage of development. Imagine if different choices had been made that night. If Jacare had simply acknowledged Maya's concerns about the Instagram photo instead of escalating the argument, if he had left the home without taking a gun with him, if neighbors who heard previous arguments had called authorities earlier, if Maya had recognized the danger signs in the relationship and sought help, if either of them had access to conflict resolution skills or domestic violence resources. Any one of these alternative paths might have led to a different outcome, one where Maya and her unborn child survived, where two young children still had their mother, where a young man wasn't facing years in prison. The tragedy lies not just in what happened, but in how preventable it was. Legal experts not connected to the case have noted that manslaughter charges are appropriate given the evidence described in public records. Without clear proof of intent to kill, prosecutors must work with the charges they can prove beyond reasonable doubt. Some victim advocates have questioned whether the justice system adequately addresses the pattern of escalating domestic violence that preceded the fatal shooting. The casual admission of previous neck-grabbing incidents raises questions about whether earlier interventions might have prevented this tragedy. As the case moves through the court system, one question remains: was justice truly served? Or does the legal system's focus on the moment of the shooting miss the larger pattern of behavior that led to that fatal night? Beyond the specifics of Maya and Jacare's case lies a broader message about relationship danger signs that everyone should recognize. When arguments consistently escalate beyond verbal disagreement, it signals a relationship dynamic that needs immediate attention. Healthy conflict involves discussion, not destruction. Digital boundaries matter in modern relationships. Clear conversations about what constitutes appropriate online behavior can prevent misunderstandings that trigger jealousy and insecurity. The presence of weapons fundamentally changes the risk level in any domestic dispute. A momentary loss of control becomes potentially fatal when firearms are accessible. Isolation tactics, like taking someone's phone, serve as control mechanisms that limit a victim's ability to seek help or maintain independence. Casual admissions about past physical aggression should never be minimized. What an abuser describes matter-of-factly often represents traumatic experiences for the victim. The normalization of conflict is particularly dangerous. When neighbors become accustomed to hearing arguments, when friends stop asking questions, when family members accept tension as just how they are, intervention opportunities are missed. 20 years from now, Maya's sons will be young men. What will they remember of their mother? What lasting impact will witnessing her death have on their understanding of relationships, conflict, and love? Children exposed to domestic violence often face challenges that follow them into adulthood. Difficulty trusting others, hypervigilance to conflict, struggles with emotional regulation. Without intervention and support, the trauma can echo through generations. Yet with proper support, children can develop resilience. They can learn that what happened wasn't normal or acceptable. They can build healthy relationships despite what they witnessed. The difference often comes down to whether the adults around them acknowledge the trauma rather than pretending it didn't happen, or expecting children to simply move on. For Maya's children, their future now depends on whether they receive the specialized support needed to process what they experienced that night in October. Prevention requires recognizing that domestic violence isn't just a family matter, it's a community responsibility. Effective prevention strategies include early education about healthy relationships beginning in middle school before dating patterns form, workplace policies that support employees experiencing domestic violence, including paid leave for court appearances and safety planning, healthcare screening where medical professionals ask about relationship safety during routine visits, community accountability where friends, family, and neighbors understand how to intervene safely, media literacy that helps people recognize how entertainment sometimes normalizes controlling behaviors as romantic, accessible mental health services that address underlying issues before they escalate to violence. If this story impacted you, please hit subscribe and share this video to raise awareness. What do you think could prevent tragedies like this? I read every comment, and your insights might help someone recognize danger before it's too late. 2 lives were silenced on October 22, 2024. Maya Johnson and her unborn child, a 26-year-old mother with dreams, ambitions, and a future ahead of her, a baby who never had the chance to take a first breath. All because of an argument that began with an Instagram photo and ended with a gunshot. As Jahari Martin Sugrin awaits trial on manslaughter charges, Maya's 2 children are left to grow up without their mother. The case continues to move through the legal system, but no verdict can restore what was lost that night. The true tragedy of Maya's story isn't just that she died, it's that her death was preventable. The warning signs were there, the pattern was established. The danger was present long before the fatal shot. How many other Mayas are out there right now, living in homes where arguments escalate, where control is mistaken for love, where the next conflict could be their last? And what will it take for us as a society to recognize these dangers before they end in tragedy?